welcome to this follow-up video where we're going to be just building a bit more on this previous video. Can the invention of the chariot reveal the truth about the history of North Africa? Just going a bit further with that, and then we'll also speak about the Sarmatians. So I'll put a timestamp below if you want to jump straight to the part about the Sarmatians. Okay, what we're going to do is just go to the page that's specifically talking about the chariot. Now, this map is different to the previous video, so please watch the previous video before this one to know what we're speaking about. But this map, a little bit different, but still saying a very similar thing to, the spread of this chariot. And, Egypt only getting the chariot around 1500 BC, which is interesting, obviously, according to this information. And then we spoke about the spread being spread by the Indo-Europeans, and also connected to the Arya. But notice we didn't really speak about this in the previous video, but we're not really supposed to use these words like Arya. We're supposed to be using Iran. So is that a part of the ploy? Because when you hear that word, then it makes you think about a region. It makes you think about the East. So this is connected to, they're saying, to the mythology, because the chariots is depicted with the Hindu and the Persian mythology, and the gods of their pantheon riding chariots. But the first nation that they mention to be connected with the chariot is the Hittites. So the Hittites being renowned charioteers. And the Hittites, they have connections with they could have connections with the Trojans. Now, the Trojans largely considered, a legend and a myth for a long time, but more information coming out. We do have a kingdom on the historical record called Wailusa, and this has been connected with Troy and the Trojans. And there's a treaty between the Hittites and Wailusa, and it mentions a king called Alexander, and we know that Paris, the Trojan prince, was also called Alexander. So a treaty between the Trojans and the Hittites, showing this connection, maybe also showing this close proximity and also a relationship between the Trojans and the Hittites. And remember, we were speaking about the researchers looking for Troy towards the Atlantic. Should we be looking for Troy towards the Atlantic? And we used this source before on the channel. Now, it's just a person, with a theory, but he's saying, this is like the summary of this, therefore the Atlantis can be identified with the Hittite Empire, plus the Sea Peoples, linked with the Asia Minor by Luca, Lycians, and Teresh, the Tersanians. Now, this theory that the scholar is putting forward actually ties into what we're saying. So according to his theory, he's saying that this mythological legendary kingdom of Atlantis could be tied in with the Hittite Empire. And the Hittite Empire with the Sea Peoples. Now remember, we're speaking about the Sea Peoples with these islands of Sardinia and Sicily, and the connection with Libya. And we also spoke about the Luca potentially being on the Iberian Peninsula. So then you can see how all these elements could maybe tie together with the Sea Peoples, the Libyans, the Lycians, and the Hittites with the Atlanteans, and then their rivalry and the war against Egypt. And we'll try to speak about that also in this video. And then we have, just going to show a few pictures here with the chariot, because in the legends of the Greeks, we have the Trojans and the Greeks using chariots. Achilles, the famous warrior, using chariots. But in the previous video, we saw, Herodotus was saying that the Greeks learned the charioteering from the Libyans. And then we also spoke about the Berber tribe in North Africa called the Maxiyes, who said they came from Troy. So the Trojans connected with North Africa. So this picture is the Bronze Age chariots of the Mycenaean Greeks. So one of the ancient cultures of the Greeks, the Mycenaeans, and the use of the chariot. And then we spoke about that source of Hercules leaving Mycenaeans in this region of North Africa. So, if he's leaving Mycenaean warriors, or soldiers in this region, and they made use of the chariot. It's again another connection for the chariot being in this region for the ancient times. So it's just interesting how something like the chariot, you could actually start to put the history together for this region. So yeah, I just wanted to build a little bit more with that. So just to finish that section, if we think about that scholar connecting the Hittites with the empire of Atlantis, and if it's correct that one of the most earliest civilizations to be involved in this chariot warfare is the Hittites. So again, you can just see how it all that kind of ties together. If the Hittites actually in this part of the world, and they're one of the first nations to be on the record for chariot warfare, how it kind of ties in with that previous video with Poseidon and with the horse and the chariots. Yeah, so please watch that previous video if you haven't, for that to really make sense. Okay, let's go on to the next part for the video, which is going to be the Sarmatians. Okay, so the Sarmatians. Now notice again, so speaking about the Iranian peoples. So when you hear that word, it just pulls you to the east. So I'm just asking, is that, maybe why we're not allowed to use certain words? Is it like a form of control? So the women warriors, the Sarmatians. So I'm just going to read this part out. Now for the Sarmatians, we're just focusing on this element of the women warriors. They have no right breasts, for while they are yet babies, their mothers make red hot a bronze instrument constructed for this very purpose, and apply it to the right breast and cauterize it, so that its growth is arrested, and all its strength and bulk are diverted to the right shoulder and right arm. So we have these legends of this practice to strengthen the right side for the female warriors, and this matriarchy in the Sarmatian culture. So we're going to just try and learn a bit more about the Amazon woman. Now, it is largely considered legendary and myths to most modern scholars, but there are discoveries of burials that maybe can prove that there is some truth to these legends and these myths. So it says here, they were a group of female warriors and hunters who were as skilled and courageous as men in physical agility, strength, archery, riding skills, and the arts of combat. Their society was closed to men. Courageous and fiercely independent, and it even speaks about them conquering parts of the world like Scythia, Thrace, Asia Minor, the Aegean Islands, reaching as far as Arabia and Egypt. So if there's truth to the legends, then the Amazons would have had a major impact on the ancient world with its ancient history, conquering all these different regions. So what I'd like to do is draw a comparison of these Amazons, so these warrior women, to the region that we're studying and coming in closer to the modern time with Kahina. So Kahina was a Berber queen of the Ores, a religious and a military leader who led an indigenous resistance to the Muslim conquest of the Maghreb, the region then known as Namudia. So Queen of the Ores, let me show you on the map. So the Ores Mountains, so we see here Algeria, Tunisia, so this region of Numidia that we were talking about. So just trying to draw a comparison that, we're looking at this region, thinking about, the chariots, about the Arya nations, and now we also see potentially this connection with the Sarmatians and the Amazons with women warriors. So it's just interesting coming closer to our time with the Berber, in this world of the Berbers. Can we draw a comparison here that we still have maybe some evidence of this culture with Kahina, a warrior queen of the Berbers? Okay, now this source, speaking about the Amazons of Africa, I'll put the sources in the description below if you'd like to learn about the Amazons of Africa. I'm just going to take one thing from here, which says that the more ancient race had its origins in Libya. So there were Amazons, according to the mythology, in different regions, but that the more ancient race had its origin in Libya. So that could be important. And then also we said we're using this source, Sir Isaac Newton. This is interesting. I want to take from here. So speaking about Bacchus, and according to this, Bacchus would be a king of Egypt. And it says he had Libyan women in his army, amongst whom was Minerva, a woman born in Libya. So just to add to a bit of learning for the mythology, so Minerva is another character in the mythology. And the interesting thing is that Minerva is also connected to Athena. So the Romans may have known her as a goddess of wisdom, calling her Minerva, but the Greeks may have called her Athena. So one of the most famous goddesses of the Olympians. So she's one of the 12 Olympians with Zeus and Poseidon in this mythology. And her name is going to be connected with the founding of Athens, one of the most famous Greek cities. So that's actually very interesting. So just to say that again, so Minerva born in Libya. So that would then make Athena one of the Olympians born in Libya. So we've had Poseidon described as, well, it said that the Libyans were the first to worship Poseidon. And now we're seeing another one of the Olympians, Athena, also being connected with Libya. And queen of the Amazons. So that would make Athena queen of the Amazons. Now the interesting thing is, when you look at this Wikipedia page for Minerva, there's nothing about the Amazons. There's nothing about Minerva being queen of the Amazons. And if you also go to the page on Athena, there's nothing on the page about Athena being queen of the Amazons. So this is very interesting. So the connection is, just wait for the page to load. So now we are looking at the myths and legends. So I'm just going to remind you, it's up to you to decide how you, discern this and how you judge it. So we are largely looking in, the legends and the myths. But we have, according to the mythology, Myrina, a queen of the Amazons. And this is being connected with Minerva. So either Myrina or Minerva. And then we see on this page, Minerva, the equivalence is Athena. But it's saying that Myrina, that she's the queen of the Amazons. So that if you go through all those details, that would be saying that Athena is queen of the Amazons, or was queen of the Amazons. But we're not getting that mentioned in this whole page. I find it very interesting, and that could be important. So what I'd like to do now is speak about Atlantis versus Athens. So this legendary mythological history, because I think a lot of us are going to be new to this, and just try and learn a little bit of the story with Atlantis. And because what we're doing is trying to understand the history of this region, but we're not really getting any kind of ancient history for this region, going back, let's say, like to 1000 BC, 2000 BC. This region kind of goes off the record and it goes dark and mysterious. But then when we look at the mythology, then potentially there's a lot of history, lots of things happening here. So that's kind of why I'd like to just read this. So it's about Atlantis, and this is information coming to Plato. It's Plato. And I don't want to read it all out because you can always read it for yourself. But it's coming to the Greeks via the Egyptians. So the Egyptian priests. So the priests that told Solon. But you can read it so you can actually really know what it's saying. But I just want to read this part out. So these ancient and powerful kings or rulers of Atlantis had formed a confederation by which they controlled Atlantis and other islands as well. They began a war from their homeland in the Atlantic Ocean and sent fighting troops to Europe and Asia. So they, ambitious, they want to conquer. It says, against this attack, the men of Athens formed a coalition from all over Greece to halt it. So Athens versus Atlantis. So the Greek world versus the Atlanteans. When this coalition met difficulties, their allies deserted them, and the Athenians fought alone to defeat the Atlantean rulers. They stopped an invasion of their own country, as well as freeing Egypt, and eventually even eventually every country under the control of the rulers of Atlantis. So saying that Athenians actually saved Egypt or helped Egypt, and there were many countries under the rule of Atlantis. So, it would have been a powerful empire. And try to remember also that we just thinking also about the connection potentially with the Hittite Empire, because the Hittite Empire was also a very powerful empire, and it was also a rival of Egypt. So does it kind of make sense what this scholar was thinking? Okay, so I think we're here. Shortly after their victory, even before the Athenians could return home, Atlantis suffered catastrophic earthquakes and floods until it disappeared beneath the sea. So then we have the legends of, the disappearing of Atlantis. Just for those of us that are new to this, to try and get an understanding of this, what's coming out of this myths and these legends. So it would be Egypt, it was Athens against Atlantis, but it also involves Egypt. And I just want to read one more thing. This is from that same source of Sir Isaac Newton. So we're going through quite a lot, but I just want to think about, so I've highlighted an interesting part here if you'd like to read it yourself, but I wanted to just pick out this part where it says that it speaks about Hercules versus Antaeus, or Atlas, and it says that Hercules took the Libyan world from Atlas. And I remember it's going to be saying, according to this source, Hercules, king of Egypt. So Hercules taking the Libyan world from Atlas, just so we can try and understand what's happening according to the mythology. So the king of Egypt taking the Libyan world from Atlas, who would have been king of the world of Atlantis. So just so we can try to see what is the truth to this, because if we think about Egypt as a major kingdom, a major power in the ancient world, where's their focus going to be? Where are their main rivals? What's the main danger to Egypt? And just thinking about the chariot, because that's also kind of an element we're thinking about. If the chariot was invented, where they telling us, and this would be like the spread of this culture of the Arya, then you might think that to the east would be the main worry for Egypt, the main danger for, in this ancient world, because then you would think that this advanced civilization that could threaten Egypt would be coming from the east. But the mythology is telling us that the main problem for Egypt was to the west, with Atlantis. So just wondering if that could actually help with our perspective to think about what the mythology is saying, and then does it actually hold up? Does it make sense? And also when you think about the nations that we do have on the historical record, like the Hittites. So it's still going to take more exploring and also investigating. But I was just trying to say, I think a few videos ago, will something slowly start to emerge that will make sense and that we can say, okay, I'm starting to understand what could be going on here. So let me know if you've been watching these videos, if you do feel that maybe something is starting to make sense with this, and how do you feel about the myths and the legend and the mythology. In the next video, I would like to look at the book of Jasher. So one of the books of the Apocrypha, we're going to be looking at an account from the book of Jasher. So thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.